The sky was a deep, angry red as the alien ships descended, their vast silhouettes blotting out the sun. In the distance, Maya Williams, captain of Earth's Strategic Command, stood at the observation window of the Military Command Center, watching the sky burn. The Jundari fleet had arrived. "You were right, Maya," Lieutenant Ashram said, his voice steady but laced with a hint of awe. "They didn't come to negotiate." Maya's jaw tightened. "We've known this was coming. The question is, how do we survive it?" The Jundari were an ancient, war-hardened species, notorious for their brutality. Humanity had barely had time to prepare when the warning came, an encrypted transmission intercepted days ago from a surviving ship, telling of the Jundari's advance. And now, Earth was facing its first real alien invasion. The fleet had breached Earth's defenses with terrifying ease, rendering their most powerful weaponry useless. Humanity's fight had just begun, and it wasn't going to be pretty. "What's our play?" Ashram asked, eyes still glued to the window. Maya shifted her gaze, considering the situation with her usual calm demeanor. Her mind worked through the problem methodically, but inside, a storm was brewing. Earth's best fighters, their best defenses, were outmatched. She had to act fast, or the Jundari would sweep across the planet like a plague. "We fight fire with fire," she muttered, more to herself than Ashram. Her words were met with a slight pause before Ashram nodded. "You're thinking of the sleeper tech." Maya's sharp eyes met his. "Exactly. The only way we can stand a chance is by using the technology buried beneath the surface." Dr. Eugene Carter, a senior scientist assigned to Earth's military, looked up from his tablet. His dark, weary eyes betrayed a man who had spent too many sleepless nights trying to make sense of the incomprehensible. "If we can access it, yes. But we don't even know if it's functional anymore." Maya stepped toward him, her boots clicking against the metal floor. "We have no choice. If we don't activate it now, we'll lose everything." The sleeper technology was a remnant of an ancient Earth project, designed to harness alien technology and turn it against invaders. It was a last resort, a weapon humanity had long since abandoned for fear of its potential misuse. Now, in the face of annihilation, that potential was their only hope. Carter didn't respond immediately. His fingers hovered above the tablet's screen, clearly uneasy. "The risks are astronomical. We're talking about waking up something we don't understand. It could tear the planet apart. But we won't survive if we don't try," Maya shot back, her voice low but resolute. "We're out of time." Ashram's voice came in a low murmur. "I'll prep the team for the mission. If we're going in, we'll need full readiness." Maya nodded. She turned to look once more at the fleet above them, the Jundari ships now casting long shadows over the horizon. This was no longer a matter of defense. It was survival. The tension in the command center was thick. Everyone knew the weight of the decision that hung in the air. Maya watched the countdown timer ticking down, each second bringing them closer to a confrontation with the unknown. If the sleeper tech didn't work, they were done for. If it did, it could turn the tide, but at what cost? As Maya suited up for the mission, Ashram approached her. "Do you really think it will work? All this time, we've been preparing for everything, except something like this." Maya met his gaze, her eyes narrowing. "I'm counting on it, Ashram. You should be, too." They exited the command center and made their way to the shuttle bays, the heavy hum of the ship's engines vibrating under their feet. The world outside was silent for a moment, an eerie stillness settling over them. Dr. Carter followed closely behind, his face a mask of determination mixed with anxiety. "I'll be right behind you," he said, his voice trailing off as he stared at the shuttle that would take them to the depths of the Earth, to the secret vaults that held the sleeper tech. The shuttle's engines roared to life as they lifted off, racing through the atmosphere toward the underground facility. Maya clenched her fists, watching the land below. The Jundari had already begun their assault on the major cities. The countdown had begun for humanity's final stand. "How much longer until we're there?" Ashram asked, looking over at Dr. Carter. 5 minutes, Carter responded curtly, eyes scanning the data on his tablet. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Maya's thoughts raced. There was so much that could go wrong. They might not even make it to the vaults. Or worse, if they did, and the technology wasn't usable, Earth would fall in a matter of days. The shuttle descended through layers of rock, the lights inside flickering briefly as they passed through ancient underground tunnels. Finally, they landed in the dimly lit vault. Maya's boots hit the ground with a solid thud as she exited the shuttle. Her pulse quickened. "Let's move," she said. They had one shot at this, and the clock was ticking. The vault's heavy metal door groaned as it slid open, revealing the darkness within. Maya's boots echoed as she stepped forward, the dim light from their helmet-mounted flashlights casting long shadows across the ancient stone walls. The air smelled stale, musty, like something forgotten for centuries. Yet in the eerie silence, she felt an odd sense of urgency, as if the walls themselves were alive, whispering secrets of their past. "We're in," Maya said, her voice cutting through the stillness. Her team followed close behind, Ashram's large form looming beside Dr. Carter, who clutched his tablet nervously. The flickering light from the flashlights made his face appear gaunt, his usually confident demeanor now replaced with an air of uncertainty. The doors slid shut behind them with a heavy thud, sealing them in the heart of the earth. The vault, hidden beneath layers of rock and earth, had been constructed long before Maya was born. It had been abandoned, forgotten, after the project it housed had been deemed too dangerous. Now, the fate of humanity rested on the fragile hope that the technology within could still be salvaged. "This place gives me the creeps," Ashram muttered, his voice muffled by the helmet. He glanced around, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. "I can't believe we're risking everything on a forgotten tech." Maya didn't respond immediately. Her eyes were fixed on the center of the vault, where a large cylindrical structure stood. It resembled an ancient, metallic cocoon, dormant for who knows how long. Around it, the shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, as if the room itself were holding its breath. "We don't have a choice," Maya said quietly, her voice strained. "If this doesn't work, we're dead. All of us. Earth, humanity, gone." Dr. Carter stepped forward, his fingers already working feverishly over his tablet. He muttered under his breath, a series of technical terms Maya could barely keep up with. The device he was using had been designed to bypass the security systems around the sleeper tech, but there was no guarantee it would work. They were about to dive into something that could either save them or condemn them all. The seconds dragged on, each one heavier than the last. Finally, Carter's voice broke the tension. "It's activating. But the systems are old. Damaged. I need you to be ready for anything." Maya glanced at Ashram, whose expression had gone from skeptical to cautious. His hand hovered near his weapon, ready for a fight. "We're ready," Maya said, her voice steady, though inside, her heart was pounding in her chest. "Let's make sure this works." The room rumbled, a low vibration that seemed to come from deep within the earth. The massive cylinder at the center of the room hummed to life, its surface flickering with erratic lights, as if waking from a long, deep slumber. Maya's pulse quickened. This was it, the moment that would decide whether humanity lived or died. Carter stepped back, eyes wide as he watched the system boot up. It's working," he breathed, barely able to contain the excitement in his voice. But Maya wasn't ready to celebrate yet. Not until she saw the weapon in action. The humming grew louder, the lights around the vault flickering wildly as the machinery inside the cylindrical structure came to life. A heavy metallic door on the side of the device slid open with a hiss, revealing a gleaming black suit of armor, sleek and menacing. The suit looked as though it had been designed for something, or someone, immensely powerful. Its intricate patterns shimmered with an almost unnatural light, the surface smooth and cold. Maya stepped forward, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her. She reached out slowly, her fingers grazing the surface of the suit. "This is it," she whispered. Ashram's voice was tight. "What is it?" "A weapon," Maya said, eyes narrowed. "A weapon designed to turn the tide of battle. A last resort." Her hand gripped the suit's arm, steadying herself. The weight of responsibility fell on her shoulders like a crushing force. We have no choice. We use it or we lose. Carter stood off to the side, watching intently, but there was something in his eyes, something that made Maya uneasy. He wasn't as excited as he should have been, given what they had just unlocked. His gaze flickered back and forth between the suit and the monitor, as though searching for something. "What's wrong?" Maya asked, sensing his hesitation. Carter's lips twisted, a shadow crossing his face. It's not just a weapon. It's more than that." Maya frowned. "What do you mean?" Before Carter could answer, the ground beneath their feet shook violently, knocking them off balance. The lights flickered once more, then went dark. The entire vault was plunged into pitch-black silence. Panic erupted among the team. "What the hell was that?" Ashram barked, drawing his sidearm and aiming it toward the shadows. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. "The Jundari," she whispered, realizing with a cold certainty that their time had just run out. The ground trembled beneath their boots, an ominous rumble that echoed through the vault's metallic corridors. Maya's breath caught in her throat as the lights flickered, then extinguished altogether, plunging them into darkness. The only sound that remained was the rapid thumping of their hearts, beating in sync with the pulse of the earth beneath them. Ashram's voice broke the silence, low and tight. "What was that?" Maya's instincts screamed at her to move, but her mind raced, trying to make sense of the sudden chaos. She could barely see her own hand in front of her face. The dim light from their helmet-mounted torches barely cut through the blackness. "The Jundari," she murmured, her voice barely audible in the thick silence. "They're here." Ashram cursed under his breath. "No. This was supposed to be a dead world, Maya. They can't. They never left," Maya finished for him. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her pulse. The Jundari, the enemy her people had fought for decades, the ones responsible for the destruction of entire colonies, had followed them here. To Earth. Dr. Carter's voice came through the darkness, his tone frantic. "Maya, we need to move. Now." Maya snapped out of her daze. The technology. The suit. The Jundari were after the vault. It had to be. Her eyes scanned the shadows, her hand instinctively reaching for the sidearm strapped to her waist. Her fingers closed around the cool grip, but she didn't draw it just yet. There was no telling how many Jundari they were up against. It wasn't the number that worried her, it was what they were capable of. And the one thing she knew for sure, they weren't alone. "We can't stay here," Ashram said, his voice grating with urgency. "We need to activate the suit. It's our only chance." Maya turned toward the dormant suit in the center of the vault, still hidden in the shadow of the cylindrical structure. The Jundari were close. She could feel them, like a presence in the air, oppressive and thick. With a sharp breath, Maya moved forward, stepping cautiously, her boots tapping softly against the cold metal floor. She reached for the suit, her fingers trembling as they brushed the smooth surface. Her team had no time to hesitate. If the Jundari reached this vault, if they got to the technology inside, humanity would be finished. Carter was already on his tablet, his hands flying over the screen, trying to bring the suit online. "I can't get it to. Do it." Maya barked, her voice rising with frustration. She knew Carter was trying, but time was slipping away. The Jundari would be on them any minute now. Just as Carter's fingers hovered over the final sequence, the lights above them flared back to life, too bright, too sudden. The vault's hum grew louder, the walls vibrating with energy. "That's it!" Carter shouted, a spark of hope in his voice. "It's online." The suit began to power up, the internal lights flickering to life one by one. Maya's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The weapon that could turn the tide of the war. The suit's surface shimmered with strange symbols and patterns, glowing an eerie, bluish hue in the darkness. The door slid open with a mechanical hiss, revealing the cockpit inside. The armor's hollow interior beckoned her, but Maya hesitated. She couldn't afford to make a mistake now. Her pulse raced as she stepped forward, slowly at first, her eyes scanning for anything out of place. Behind her, Ashram's voice was steady, but there was no hiding the tension in his words. "Maya, we don't have much time. They're getting closer." Maya nodded, reaching out and grabbing the straps of the suit. Her hands were steady now, no longer trembling with fear, but with purpose. She didn't have the luxury of second-guessing herself. With a sharp intake of breath, she slid into the cockpit and strapped herself in. The suit's interior was as cold and alien as the vault around them, but the moment she connected with it, the systems came to life. A surge of energy flooded through her, and her vision cleared. Data streamed across her helmet's visor, an array of commands and symbols she could barely comprehend, but the suit's neural interface adapted to her thoughts, guiding her through the overwhelming information. "Stay sharp," Maya muttered to herself, gripping the controls. "This is our only shot." The ground rumbled again, louder this time, and Maya's senses heightened. Her heartbeat quickened as the weight of the responsibility pressed down on her. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was the future of humanity. A distant, eerie howl echoed through the vault, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, footsteps that were not human. The Jundari were here. She heard Ashram's voice again, this time frantic. "Maya. They're here." Her fingers tightened around the controls as the suit's engines hummed to life. She could feel the power coursing through her body now, each movement becoming fluid, effortless. The suit was more than just a weapon, it was an extension of her, a part of her. "Let's end this," Maya whispered, a surge of determination flooding her veins. The Jundari wouldn't know what hit them. A cold wind blew through the vault as the first wave of enemies arrived. The war had just begun. Maya's heart pounded in her chest as the suit's systems hummed to life, synchronizing with her every thought. She could feel the neural interface blending with her senses, amplifying her perception, making every detail sharper, clearer. The weight of the moment settled over her like a cloak, but she pushed it aside. This wasn't about fear. This was about survival. Outside, the eerie howls of the Jundari grew louder, closer. Their alien footsteps echoed down the long corridors, their unnatural gait unsettling, but Maya's focus remained fixed on the mission ahead. She took a deep breath and ran her fingers across the controls. A surge of power rippled through the suit's frame, and the once muted world burst into sharp, vivid clarity. "Ready," Maya muttered under her breath. Ashram's voice crackled through her earpiece, steady but tight with urgency. "You're not alone, Maya. We've got your back." The soft hum of the suit's engines grew louder as Maya shifted into motion. She could feel the immense power of the armor, the way it adapted to every command. She was no longer just Maya, the suit had become an extension of her, amplifying her every movement, her every decision. And in the back of her mind, she could feel the weight of the Jundari approaching. She couldn't hesitate. "Keep moving, Maya. We need to get to the central hub," Ashram continued. "We've got to protect the data." Maya glanced back, catching a glimpse of Carter, his face taut with concentration as he fumbled with his tablet. They'd worked together for years, but this was different. This was their last stand. The vault was their only hope. If the Jundari breached it, everything they had fought for would be lost. But if they could hold their ground, if they could activate the core, they might have a chance. The walls vibrated again, but this time it was louder, more intense. Maya clenched her jaw as the air grew heavier. "They're here," Carter hissed, the screen on his tablet flickering with static. "They're right outside the door. If we don't get the security protocols online." Before he could finish, the vault door crashed open with a deafening sound, sending vibrations through the room. Maya didn't wait. She bolted toward the entrance, her suit's thrusters kicking in and sending her rocketing toward the breach with a single bound. The first Jundari stormed through the door, its massive, armored figure silhouetted against the dim light from the corridor. The creature's skin, a dark, mottled blend of scales and sinew, shimmered in the light. Its four glowing eyes focused on Maya, and a low growl rumbled from its chest. Maya didn't hesitate. She lifted her arm and fired. A brilliant blast of energy shot from the suit's cannon, slamming into the Jundari's chest with a force that sent it flying backward. The air was filled with a sharp, burning scent, and for a moment, all Maya could see was the glow of her suit's HUD and the alien body crumpling against the wall. But there was no time to savor the victory. More of them poured in. Hundreds, maybe more, their figures a blur of motion in the low light. The Jundari were relentless, their strength unmatched, but Maya knew she had something they didn't: strategy, precision, and humanity's ability to adapt under pressure. She fired again, and another Jundari dropped. But the enemy kept coming. "Carter, we need that data," Maya shouted, her voice booming through the comms. "I'm almost there." Carter's voice crackled, but the panic in it was unmistakable. "I can't override the system fast enough with all this interference." Maya gritted her teeth. The suit's systems were glitching under the pressure of the constant onslaught, but it was still holding up. "For now." Ashram's voice cut in, his tone unwavering. "Maya, we have to fall back. Get to the upper level. We can't hold them here." She hesitated, her pulse spiking. The Jundari were overwhelming them, but retreat wasn't an option. They needed the core up and running, or humanity's last defense would be shattered. "Not yet," she ground out, her boots skidding as she pivoted to face the incoming wave. "We need more time." The Jundari were closing in, their glowing eyes hungry, their weapons drawn. Maya could hear their guttural growls, the sound of their claws scraping against the metal floor. They were on a hunt, and she was the target. But in her mind, something clicked. She saw the path forward, a brief moment of clarity in the chaos. She adjusted the suit's settings, amplifying the energy reserves. Her hands moved over the controls with practiced speed. Then she let the suit's thrusters roar to life, launching her toward the ceiling with incredible speed. In an instant, she landed on the upper level, the blast from her landing throwing debris into the air. The Jundari on the ground below scrambled to follow, but Maya had already begun to recalibrate her weapons, preparing for the next strike. "I've got the core, Maya," Carter yelled. "Initiating now." The ground shook, the walls rattling with the power of the system coming online. A brilliant pulse of energy coursed through the vault, flooding the room with blinding light. The Jundari faltered, their senses overwhelmed by the sudden surge of power. Maya's voice rang out, firm and unwavering. "Now. This is our world." With a final push, she unleashed the full power of the suit's weapons, sending the Jundari scattering in a wave of brilliant light and sound. The tide had turned. But this was just the beginning.